Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here, giving you my immediate reaction to the light heavyweight clash between Joshua Buatsi and Roberts Bolotniks, which of course took place at the Matchroom headquarters in Essex as part of their Fight Camp series live on DAZN. Now, before we get into that main event clash, we'll get into some of the undercard results here. Now, in the co-featured bout of the evening, in a welterweight clash, we had Michael McKinson defeat, and I'm going to butcher this, so let's go with it. Przemysław Ronovsky. Probably ruined it. But anyway, he beat him over the distance. We also had Hobie Price in a junior featherweight clash beat Claudio Grande, earning a referee's decision. We had Cash Farouk actually make his Matchroom debut, defeating Luis Gerardo Castillo over a decision. We had Raymond Ford, the American, then beating Reese Bellotti in the third round stoppage at featherweight. And then we had, in a non-televised bout, Zelfa Barrett defeat Virel Simon over a four-round decision. Now, in the main event, it started off with both just kind of checking each other out, with Buatsi getting the better of the action, but he was tagged now and then, especially with some left hands. He kind of had his best moments in the third and in the fourth, kind of going forward, but it did get a little bit wild in there at times, and that kind of spelled a little bit of trouble for him towards those middle to late rounds. Bolotniks was trying to survive in the fifth and sixth, but he was dropped pretty hard by a hook and almost finished. But he fought back, to his credit, after Buatsi had kind of shot his wad a little bit, which of course made the fight much harder for him. Making matters worse, Buatsi had a point deducted for numerous low blows in the eighth round, which again kind of started making him have a little bit of a mountain to climb here. The corner wanted Buatsi to take more control over the fight again in the ninth and tenth, and he did, especially the tenth. And he just kind of jabbed and stepped forward. It was simple, but it worked. It kind of reinvigorated him and kind of put Bolotniks in his place, so to speak, as the fight's kind of, temperament played out. And finally, in the 11th, with a smashing right hand, Bolotniks was dropped hard, and the fight was called to a halt with a, much more succinct performance coming out of Buatsi after he caught that second wind. A about probably much closer than most people expected, including me. Really, I thought it might be close initially, but Buatsi would finish him somewhere in the middle frames. That was actually my prediction pre-fight. Buatsi seemed to think this as well, though, and that may have ultimately led to him kind of blowing a gasket a little bit early in that fight and getting a little winded, and it ultimately turned this fight into a much harder fight in those kind of mid to late frames. However, other than a few left hands in some of those rounds we just mentioned, Bolotniks found some success, but Buatsi did what we kind of expected him to do. It just took perhaps a little bit longer. Bolotniks is tricky. He was gonna land some of those unorthodox shots because it's hard to block everything when you can't expect the kind of trajectory some of those awkward shots will land with. However, Buatsi mostly controlled the action, set up power shots, and ultimately got his man out of there, which is kind of what you're expecting him to do as he steps up in what, in my opinion, was supposed to be and turned out to be the toughest fight of his career. And while he could move his head a bit more to me, and he could, set up some of his work with a little bit, taken off of some of those shots sometimes. Ultimately, I think he performed pretty well. And what I like about him most is that even deep into a fight, his power is still there, which to me helps separate him from some of his British counterparts. Nowadays, Brits are usually very well schooled and have very educated feet, and they move those feet very, very well. But that foot movement can at times take some of the power out of their shots. They just don't sit down on them enough. And if you look at a lot of the British prospects that are rising right now, not many of them have great power or great knockout ratios. And that's nothing against them per se, but it's just power, while it's not the only thing that should matter, it's something that is important. Again, you find yourself like Buatsi in this fight where, it's a closer than expected fight. You want to make sure there's no questions asked. An easy way to do that is being able to have at least enough power to take your man out of there, especially a tougher guy like Bolotniks who doesn't just go down without a fight. Buatsi seems to have world level hands in that respect, which makes it exciting considering British boxing still has the fan base to support a fun fighter like Buatsi, and that's certainly what he's becoming. Moving forward, like I said, I think what he needs to work on would just be the head movement and kind of stay calm when you hurt your man. I mean, he did seem to kind of wind himself out there, which again, at a world level, he would be made to pay for that in those bigger fights, especially at light heavyweight where there are a lot of killers out there. So it's certainly something he needs to work on. I like the way his cornerman Virgil Hunter was handling him and motivating him to kind of realize he did have that second wind in him, that he was in shape. It wasn't a lot of tactical advice he gave him in that moment. It was more encouragement and then told him to go to the body. So it was, a 50-50 split, I guess, in some sense, but it was simple advice is my point, and it seemed to work and kind of ultimately lead to the end of the fight. In any event, let me know what you guys thought of the entire card, and of course, Buatsi's performance as well. What'd you think of the stoppage? Let me know down in the comments. We'd love to hear all that there. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow, and more at jcalderon_JOB on Twitter. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. And of course, please be sure to visit junboxing.com for schedule results, ratings, betting odds, so on and so forth. And as always, until next time.